We're now on to presentation 6, which covers topic 6 from Econ 3. The title of this topic is competition policy. And what we're trying to focus on in this topic is how we go about solving imperfect competition in markets. What imperfect competition is when productive efficiency and allocative efficiency are not achieved. What I want to do very quickly before we start thinking about how we can solve imperfect competition, I want to go back to the 3 main market structures we've looked at. So we've looked at perfect comp, we've looked at oligopoly, and we've looked at monopoly. Now, when we looked at these 3 different market structures, what we said was that there are good and bad points about each. I just want to sort of summarise very quickly the good and bad points of each one, and it'll become clear why in a couple of minutes. Good points about productive efficiency, about perfect comp, is we know that in the long run anyway, in perfect competition, productive efficiency and allocative efficiency are achieved. So we don't have imperfect competition, we have perfect competition. It's the only one of these 3 market structures that guarantees productive and allocative efficiency. We also know it's good for economic welfare. Because there's high choice in the market, customers can shop around for better deals, they've guaranteed low prices, lots of choice, lots of quality on offer, so it should be the best one for the customers. But what we then said was not necessarily. Some of the bad points we mentioned are low economies of scale. Because the businesses here have only got a very, very low output compared to the total for the market, they're not achieving they're not achieving the efficiency that a large business could do with a large output. So low output means low economies of scale, so prices might actually be higher than what they would be under a different market structure. What we also said as well is because they don't make supernormal profit, there's going to be little investment in raising dynamic efficiency. So there won't be the investments in research and development, developing better products that you might see in some of the other market structures. A third problem, what you might get are a lot of negative externalities. Because businesses are forced to drive up their efficiency levels to cut costs to be more competitive, it might mean they might cut a few corners. That might mean more pollution, maybe not disposing of things in the correct way, just to get the cost down a little bit more. That therefore will create lots of external costs for society. Oligopoly. Let's start with the good points first of all. What we said was what you will get in oligopoly is a lot of non-price competition. So there'll be a lot of focus from the businesses on trying to make their products stand out compared to the rivals. So what that might mean is additional services. So in the supermarket industry, this is things such as 24-hour shopping, online shopping, free delivery services, bigger product range, club cards, loyalty schemes. These are all designed to get more and more people to go there. These should be good for customers. Other good things about oligopoly. Now we know there's scope for high supernormal profit in oligopoly. Yeah, that means high prices, which isn't always a good thing. But what it will mean is there might be a lot of investment in dynamic efficiency, improving the quality, more research and development, making things bigger and better than what they could do before. We also know that because these firms have got a big output, high economies of scale, they might not achieve productive efficiency like a perfectly competitive firm will do, but because they're operating on a completely different cost curve to a competitive firm, it might mean that even though they're not efficient, their prices may still be lower than what they would be under perfect competition. So in terms of oligopoly, they're the good things we've got. Bad points. We know that game theory suggests and kink demand curve theory suggests that businesses will not compete on price. There's likely to be collusion where they raise prices together. So that will mean in effect, what they are using is restrictive trade practices. So they're trying to avoid confrontation with businesses. So they like to raise price together, which of course means higher price for customers. One thing I would say is, though, that some collusion could be a good thing. Okay, if they're working to share resources, gain more economies of scale, more bulk buying, etc., sharing resources such as investments in research and development, then that's obviously quite efficient. Monopoly. Let's think about the good things first of all. You've got the natural monopoly argument. We said that in some markets it's far better to have one firm providing a good service due to high setup costs. It'd be silly to have lots of firms, for example, providing a mail delivery service. You don't need 3 or 4 postmen at your door every morning. We said because they've got a very high output, a bit like an oligopoly, lots of potential for economies of scale. Supernorm profit will mean potential scope for dynamic efficiency. We also said that price discrimination could be a good thing. Some people will get products cheaper than other people in the market. Clearly that's good for them. Okay, bad points. Because our monopoly is a price maker, their easiest way of raising profits is to restrict output and charge higher prices. That makes it unlikely they'll achieve productive and allocative efficiency. But just to counteract that, we did say before that because they've got a massive output, their prices might still be cheaper than what they will be under perfect competition. Overall, though, because their monopoly can exploit their power they're in to make money, there will probably be low economic welfare for customers. High prices, no choice, poor quality. So what you can see is, it's like most things in economics, there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong answer. We can see that there are good points with each of these different market structures. So what government interventions largely revolve around here is trying to make markets operate more efficiently, so focus on the good things of that particular market structure. So let's go through what we've got. So examples of government interventions. You've got the Competition Commission and the Office of Fair Trading. Now what the Competition Commission will do, they'll be responsible for investigating mainly firms in oligopoly and monopoly. If there's any suggestions that 2 firms merging together will be against public interest, then that will not be allowed to happen. It's also possible that firms might be broken up if it's regarded that firm has become too big and has too much market share. There's currently debate in Europe that Microsoft should be broken up to create more competition. If they're more competitive, we should receive more of the benefits that you see in perfect competition. Office of Fair Trading may investigate normally oligopolies and monopolies again to make sure that collusion is not happening. So they're not raising price together, they're not restricting trade when possible. So it's making sure that firms are acting in the right way. Linked to this, you can use regulation and regulators. A regulator will normally watch something like a utility company where they've got a high market share, and they will say to them how much they can set their prices. So they might install a maximum price. They might install minimum quality standards just to make sure they're acting more in the customer's interests. There's also a big argument, and these two are exact opposites of each other. Public ownership / private ownership. These two can be used to create greater efficiency, get more benefits for the customers. Public ownership is where the government owns a particular industry. So in days gone by, the government has owned UK railways, electricity companies, water companies, gas companies, with the idea being if you've got one large company providing it, and because it's a non-profit organisation, it means it should be run in the interests of the customers. So if we had a monopoly such as British Gas were originally, or British Rail, you get all the good things of monopoly, but the bad things shouldn't happen because that business should be run in the public's best interest. Private ownership. When lots of state-owned businesses were sold off, so nationalised industries or public-owned businesses, They were sold off because it was argued because there was no profit motive, they were very inefficient. They were often used as government tools as well to try and create better employment opportunities for people, so they were really inefficient. So they were sold off, but more importantly, broken up. Now, let me give you an example of the railways. What the railways did was they had something called a competitive tendering process, where they give different companies the right to bid to run certain train services. Only the best companies were selected, the ones that would offer the best deal for the customers. So this might mean you've got an oligopoly, but all the bad things will be prevented because the private companies will be told exactly what they can do. They've promised what they will do to get that contract. If they don't keep up their end of the deal, they lose that particular franchise, so they would lose their business in effect. What we've also got is something we call deregulation, which is linked to what we call a contestable market. Okay, now a contestable market is where we try and make firms act as though they're in perfect competition, but they might not be in perfect competition. And it's all about trying to get rid of barriers to entry and exit. So a truly competitive market will have no barriers to entry or exit. A contestable market will also have no barriers to entry or exit. Now, this might work in a monopoly. If you've got one firm dominating that market, if, however, there are no barriers to entry, that monopoly will have to behave super efficiently, because if they don't, another rival firm will set up and compete with them. So the monopoly, to keep out that competition, will have to do all the good things a monopoly can do, but none of the bad. One way of doing this was deregulation. Take away legal barriers that stop firms competing in certain markets. So, for example, in the bus market, you used to have a license to operate certain bus routes and to do different things with buses. A lot of them laws were taken away, making it much easier for people to set up rival bus companies. The argument was it would increase competition, make existing firms work more efficiently, therefore you get more good things. Okay, overall you can see then that there are all sorts of different things to make businesses act more efficiently. The success of these is questionable. Regulators, well, it's often thought that there's something called regulatory capture, where the regulator, because they work so closely with a firm, might start to see things in the firm's way. That might mean they might not do things in the public's best interest. Public ownership is inefficient because there was no profit motive. It's inefficient, which meant that we as taxpayers had to fund it. That led to large debts for these companies, lack of investment in improving them. Private ownership, well, it meant we had to put regulators on the case to do things properly to make sure they weren't acting against the public best interest. There was a recent case with Silver Cross, the private provider of retirement homes. We've got a lot of financial difficulties, lots of cases of bad practice. Again, should that be something we should allow the markets to provide? Making a market contestable. Well, is it possible to make a market contestable? You may take away legal barriers, but other barriers will still remain, such as the high economies of scale, the brand name, the setup costs. You can't get rid of these barriers. And if you take away the laws that govern that particular market, you're allowing the monopoly to do more. So they might actually do more things against the public interest. So overall, the effectiveness of these government interventions is questionable. So there is scope for government failure. What I would say is what government policy needs to focus on, if we do have an oligopoly or monopoly, is making sure we get more of the good points rather than the bad points. Last thing I want to say on this is perfect comp is always seen as something we want to aspire to. It's not always the best thing due to these bad points. So any kind of market structure might not be the best thing. What we need to make sure through government intervention is that we focus on the good points rather than the bad points.